A very good evening to each one of you present here. I, Meghna Mangla, along with my co-host Nehaja Kadam, am absolutely thrilled to welcome you all. It's indeed an honor and privilege for me to stand before you as the host for today's P.R Dubhashi Public Lecture. We have gathered here to delve into a topic of great importance and relevance, and I'm confident that our distinguished speaker will enlighten us with valuable insights. As we navigate through the discourse that unfolds, let's keep in mind these great words. Asto ma sadgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityur ma amritam gamya. May we move from falsehood to truth, from darkness to light, and from mortality to immortality. Today's session is a testament to our collective pursuit of knowledge and understanding. In an era where information is abundant, the discernment of valuable insights becomes paramount. Welcome to our towering institution, rich in traditions, yet embracing change. Established in 1930, the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics holds the distinction of being India's oldest research and training institute in economics. Committed to socio-economic research, it honors Gopal Krishna Gokhale's vision of education and capacity building for nation building. Over the decades, the institute has established strong credentials in empirical and analytical research. Today's session highlights our joint pursuit of knowledge and insights, showcasing a unique perspective through Manan. Now let's welcome Vinay Amrutkar, the president of Manan, to elaborate further.
Good evening, everybody. Today's session stands as a testament to our shared quest for knowledge and insights, offering a unique perspective through Manan. Manan is the annual economic fest of Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, and it is one of the biggest economic fests in Pune. Manan was started in 2013, and since its inception, it has been consistently performing and setting a great example each year. Manan is a 5-day-long fest with hundreds of participants from different colleges and universities across India. We have a series of activities such as D.R. Gadge Memorial Paper Presentation, where students present their research papers on different topics. We have a quiz competition where famous quiz masters of India are invited to conduct the quizzes. One of the most attractive events is the flea market, which promotes small and sustainable businesses and provides a platform to business owners to showcase their products. The flea market attracts a huge crowd into the campus, which supports the sustainable and small business and the growth of these brands. Our treasure hunt is the most unique game of Manan. The team builds up clues and hints that are hidden throughout the lanes and roads of Pune, and the participants get a chance to get experience of being real-life treasure hunters for a day. Under Manan, we believe in turning classroom theories into practical skills. Our various events are designed to be more than just activities. They are opportunities for students to roll up their sleeves and tackle real-life economic challenges. We believe that Manan is a perfect mixture of celebration of curiosity and collaboration of innovative ideas. Last but not the least, speaker session, which is the concluding event of Manan. It's like a beacon of enlightenment. We invite speakers from different spheres of society like Mr. Narayan Murthy, Dr. Asif Iqbal, Mr. Ashok Warrior, Mr. R. Ramakumar, and many other renowned personalities from different walks of life. Adding to this legacy, we are honored to have Mr. Suresh Prabhakar Prabhu as our distinguished speaker this year. These speakers share their vision and real-life stories, making the event super interesting. It's not just a talk, it's like a magical place where smart thoughts and real experiences come together. Now I would like to call upon stage Isha Shetty, the Vice President of Manan, Shri Goyal and Krina, the Treasurers of Manan. The entire fest is managed by a team of around 60 members, and each one has contributed to making Manan the best of its kind, and without their contribution, it would not have been possible to make Manan a grand success. In conclusion, I like to say that Manan is not merely an event, it's a journey of exploration, collaboration and growth.
Thank you, Vinay. Now, I request our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ajit Ranade, to extend a warm welcome and felicitate our esteemed guests. I request our Vice Chancellor to felicitate Shri Suresh Prabhu. I now request our Vice Chancellor to felicitate Dr. P.R Dubhashi. Thank you, sir, for doing the honors. Now, we look forward to hearing our Vice Chancellor's thoughts about this momentous occasion.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all of you. Can we please begin with giving a round of big applause to the organizers? So it is Vinay, Shrey, Krina, Isha. I'm sorry, I won't remember all the 60 names, so you're great. Sir, this is a tribute to students' organization. We are also coming here as, partly in a ready-made function. So thank you very much for organizing this. And this is, of course, the 13th P.R Dubhashi Public Lecture in honor of Mr. Dubhashi, and we will hear a little bit about Mr. Dubhashi from his daughter. Medha Dubhashi is also here. Thank you for coming. And what can I say about the main speaker for today? So I won't say much because there is not enough time to describe him. So when you hear of Mr. Suresh Prabhu, what comes to your mind? See, today we had the Union Finance Minister present India's budget of something like 47 lakh crores, 47 trillion rupees. A few years ago, this person also stood in Parliament to present the railway budget, which used to be an independent budget presentation. But he was also one of the radical reformists who, in his tenure, decided, for good reason, and we won't discuss that today, why the railway budget should be merged into the general budget, and therefore, probably a historic railway minister who for good reason, as I said, reformist reason, decided to merge in a way, it is like giving up the privilege of having an independent, tradition which goes back probably to the British times. But when you think of Suresh Prabhu, many things come to mind. A person who became the chairman of a bank at the age of 23 or 24. And that bank is even today, the legacy is such that it's one of the top 10 performing banks in the world, by the way. I'm not exaggerating. So some of that early contribution came from his tenure. Then he has been the Sherpa, the G20 Sherpa, and the G7 Sherpa, and the Sherpa for sustainable development around the world. I think I don't know if there's any one country that you have not visited in the world. So he's been to every possible corner in the world in his peripatetic mission for either whether it was climate change or in G20. But of course, remember, he's been also heading some of the most important portfolios, and just not heading it, but actually overseeing some fairly important and fundamental reforms. One example, the unbundling of power sector, that is production, that is production of electricity and distribution, and generation, distribution, and transmission. So today we take it as given. It's so common to us that there will be three different unbundled entities, and each will have their own balance sheets and commercial interest. But this was a radical idea of 20 years ago, and he was the minister who actually unleashed those reforms of unbundling power sector, these three entities. Or when it comes to environment, I think you said one of the reforms he did in his early stint as a minister in Mr. Vajpayee's cabinet, that the files should move at predictable speed and it should be transparent. I think the right to information law came in 2005, but this was 98 or something. So anyway, I don't want to go on and on. So I just want to congratulate Manan organizers for getting a wonderful personality to Gokhale Institute. And on behalf of all of us, I want to tell him that this chota sa 45-minute session is not enough for us. Please come and spend the entire day and interacting with, with students, faculty, and staff, and immersing in the Gokhale Institute. So it's a standing invitation to you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights. Now, let me take the honor to introduce Dr. P.R Dubhashi, under whose legacy this public lecture has been organized. Dr. Dubhashi completed MA Economics from University of Pune under Professor D.R. Gadgil, in which he secured first place. During his academic career, he had won a number of scholarships and prizes, including the British Council Scholarship in 1962 for studies at the London School of Economics and the Sudhathai Tavle Gold Medal in MA Economics, to name a few. He joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1953 in Mysore State. During his early years of service, he had varied experiences in administration as Assistant Commissioner and Deputy Development Commissioner in Mysore. He later joined the Government of India as the Director of Studies at the National Institute of Community Development at Mussoorie in 1962. In May 1967, he took over as the Founder Director of Vaikunt Mehta National Institute of Cooperative Management, Pune. Since April 1970, he also became the first Founder Director of Cooperative Bankers Training College of Reserve Bank of India, Pune. In 2010, he was awarded Padma Bhushan by the Government of India at the hand of the then President Pratibha Patil. It's an honor to have with us today the daughter of Dr. P.R Dubhashi, Dr. Medha Dubhashi. She is an outstanding academician and is presently professor at Vaikunt Mehta National Institute of Cooperative Management, Pune. She has 26 years of experience in training, research, and teaching in India and Philippines, specializing in cooperatives. She has collaborated with various international organizations such as International Cooperation Alliance, International Labour Organization, United Nations, in conducting programs on gender integration of women in cooperatives. She was awarded first prize in All India Case Writing Competition conducted by Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi, on gender sensitizing in cooperatives, a case of dairy cooperatives. Now, I invite Dr. Medha to share her thoughts with our audience.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, our chief guest for the evening, Shri Suresh Prabhu, Dr. Ajit Ranade, Vice Chancellor of this university, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, the faculty and students. It gives me great pleasure to be here on this 13th lecture series. It is a coincidence that my father chose to have this instituted this lecture series here in Gokhale Institute. He had spent his illustrious almost 37 years of public service, and he chose to settle in Pune afterwards. Although he had the alternative of settling either in Bangalore or Delhi, where he was the cabinet secretary and the secretary state government. One of the reasons was that he was an alma mater of a modern high school, Ferguson College, and the University of Pune. As it was known then, where he won the coveted Sumati Damle Gold Medal for MA in Economics under the tutelage of Professor D.R. Gadgil, who was the founder director of this institute. He also was the recipient of a scholarship of the Gokhale Institute while pursuing his MA. By coincidence also, this institute was established in 1953 in the year that he was born. So with this bonding, he would often come to this institute to attend the Kale Memorial Lectures and other events. And it was during one of these visits that he thought of initiating these public lectures. Since 2006, we have had 12 lectures, and we are very grateful to this institute for having organized them. Today, we are very fortunate to have Shri Suresh Prabhu to address this 13th lecture. He has held various portfolios in the Union Cabinet. I remember very vividly when he had presented the railway budget with the opening lines, "Hey Prabhu." So it's really a privilege to listen to him. And the Dubhashi family is very grateful to you, sir, for doing us this honor. Without taking much of your time, I would profusely thank Dr. Ranade, the faculty, staff, library, volunteers, the Servants of India Society, and friends and snehi of the Dubhashi family. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts. It's truly an honor to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session, Mr. Suresh Prabhakar Prabhu. Over the course of 30 years, he has held 10 important cabinet portfolios at the federal level in the Government of India, including industry, power, environment and forest, railways, civil aviation, commerce and industry, and fertilizers and chemicals. Tracing his life in words is a difficult task and a lengthy one for sure. Mr. Prabhu has, since ever, directed all his efforts for the betterment of the nation. His life is truly exceptional, and now we extend our request to Mr. Suresh Prabhu to enlighten the audience.
Namaskar. I thank my dear friend Ajit Ranade for inviting me for this very interesting program of talking to young students. I think there is nothing better than this. I keep doing it all the time in different places, different countries, but this is a very happy occasion for me to meet you all. Some of you for the first time, some others I met them before. And it's also an honor for me to deliver this P.R Dubhashi Memorial Lecture. I met Mr. Dubhashi when he was a Vice Chancellor of Goa University. And I was the chairman of Saraswat Bank. I think I must be because they had just moved into the new campus, if I recall correctly. And probably I must be one of the first, or probably the first person to sign the visitor book. He told me that. He said, nobody has signed it, and we are going to start it, so why don't you sign it here? So I may be first or one of the first. But then there are, as has already been said, that there are many coincidences. That he was interested in cooperative. I was involved in all levels of cooperatives. And that's how we had discussion. I remember even that when he was a Vice Chancellor. Right from I was involved from district to state to national to international, and all levels of cooperatives I was involved with. And it was fascinating to see how cooperatives have the power to transform the societies. And that's what we had discussed. Another very interesting coincidence is that he went to study at London School of Economics. And right now I am also visiting professor there. So that's another strange coincidence. Also, though when I met him, I was not in politics. I never thought I will be. But then we discussed about government and everything else. And then I also joined the government. Like he spent all his, more or less his working life in the government. So I think I'm very honored by the fact that such a distinguished person and whose memory we are trying to perpetuate through this lecture series. And therefore I'm very happy that I'm here today to talk about him, as well as, of course, very interesting topic that I've been asked to speak on. And that's one of the very interesting issues. Dr. Ajit Ranade said that you speak on innovation and sustainable development or something like that, right? Actually, we are really on the crossroads today. And this is not India, but the whole world, the whole humanity. If we do not act swiftly, adequately, and in a comprehensive way, then the imminent danger of climate change is going to diminish or probably destroy the entire biological life on this planet. Just imagine the human beings have survived on this planet for maybe a few million years, despite the fact that they all the time faced different types of challenges. There are other species, but we survived as humans, and we could then march, and now we have virtually conquered everything that we can lay our eyes on or can think about something. We have been able to conquer that. But while we did that, and that's a great success of humanity, success of how much a human being can achieve, that itself has caused the huge destruction to the entire planet. And now it looks like that we may not even survive for a few more centuries. Despite the fact, when we had nothing, we could survive. And that's how the human beings have been there for such millions of years. But today, when it looks like we have everything, I think we seem to be heading for an imminent disaster. Already, this is not something which is a prophecy of doom which keeps people talking about. As in such and such years, the world is going to get drowned, the whole world is going to get. But this is scientific evidence made by almost all the scientists of the, not all, but representing all the countries of the world in the United Nations mandated body called Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which made this report and has warned that once the temperature crosses 1.5 degrees centigrade than what it was during the industrial revolution, the world will not be able to survive. At least most of the biological life will get destroyed. And then when we cross 2 degrees, then probably even such disaster that we cannot even imagine would be befalling on all of us. Why industrial revolution? That's a very interesting question. Because till that time, the climate has always changed. It is not that climate has never changed. Ice age, different kinds of ages have always been there. But that industrial revolution was the cause of all the human-induced greenhouse gas emission, which is the cause of climate change. So the human beings are responsible for this, because nature, of course, has its own cycle, and therefore changes will automatically happen. They have been happening and will continue to happen even for thousands of years or millions of years. But what is important is that this particular change occurred because of human-induced greenhouse gas emission. We thought the humanity has made a great discovery. We found fossil fuels. And the fossil fuels, when we started taking it out of the ground, it caused land use change, because nature had already created a land use pattern. That was the nature's way. There were some deserts, there were some ice blocks, there were some waterways, but we changed all that. And we created a land that was useful to us in a way that was destroying nature, and therefore even what was there below the surface has also come out. Then the forest, which were actually designed by nature as carbon sinks. So it's not the first time that carbon is coming into the atmosphere. It has always been there. But the amount of quantity of carbon now getting emitted, you need something to absorb it. And this is our traditional knowledge which teaches us that trees are necessary. My mother would always tell me during the month of Shravan, go and collect these particular 5 leaves of different trees. She used to give me the names. Now, of course, I don't remember the names because the trees don't exist. Or neither I can go around and find any leaves on the trees, even if there is some part of trees still living. So this was a part of our culture. We knew the importance of trees, vegetation and biodiversity that we call it now. But we always knew the importance of that. That's why all our ancient scriptures tell us, worship the nature, we almost worship the God. So now we change that, and therefore industrial evolution, which changed the entire balance that existed in the nature. And therefore this 1.5 degrees centigrade that we don't want to exceed beyond what it was during the industrial evolution. And now we crossed it actually, luckily only for a few days in 23. Hopefully we should be able to, and now there is an agreement which, thanks to Prime Minister Modi, honestly, I'm not saying it as a political statement, but he contributed to this Paris Accord, which put this 1.5 degrees centigrade when I think it was COP 23 or 24. Yeah. So that particular time in Paris, we have decided not to increase it, and now we have agreement. And now Europe country is committing to net zero, to say that we'll bring all future emissions to zero. Of course, I have some own reservation on that concept, but let's not get into that. But today, we have a great challenge. And the topic that you wanted me to speak on, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a very educated person, so I don't read it. So I ask him what I speak. So I think you are saying India's contribution to this whole idea and innovation which can contribute to this. See, number one, we should be very clear that we are 18% of global population. And our emissions are not 18%. So if you go by per capita emission, India's contribution to greenhouse gas emission, which is causing climate change, is far less. But at the same time, it's a double whammy that we are not contributed to it, but at the same time we are the worst sufferer of it. So India is facing huge challenges because of climate change. Himalaya, which is a water tower of the world, which feeds into the entire water streams, even on the other side, going into Mekong River, which is then partly used by ASEAN countries, as well as which comes into South Asia, which goes into India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, because Indus River system, everything else. So Himalayas are so important and so critical for the livelihoods, but also for a water security. And Himalayas actually is the youngest mountain range in the world. And that is also right now facing huge issues. So we are in a situation wherein without contributing to the problem, we are the worst sufferers from it. And therefore, we have to find solution for our own good. It is not that we should think that is Americans, Europeans, actually Europe, we contributed more to it because the industrial revolution started there. But even though they are responsible and it is accepted fact that when we signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, it was already stated that the countries which are responsible for these emissions and countries who are actually suffering from it. So there was Annex 1 countries which spelled out the names of those countries who contributed to this. Of course, since then, when we signed it a few decades ago, the situation has changed completely. That time the highest emitter was US. Today the highest emitter is China. And of course India is also second emitter because our economy has grown so much. We are now the 5th largest economy of the world. And therefore, in our own interest, we have to find out solution to this problem. And that one is philosophical. We have an answer to this in our own lifestyle. And in any case, the combined lifestyles of all the citizens of the world is contributing to the production. If there is no demand, why would anybody produce it? So today we are producing so much of fossil fuel based energy because there is a demand for it. So if the demand is less, obviously the consumption will be less. Consumption is less, then automatically that much production will be less. So that consumption comes from lifestyles. And our lifestyle, as has been the traditional case now, unfortunately, we are also getting influenced by the other thoughts. But actually, if you look at it, if we follow our own traditional lifestyle, it was always the case. In my grandmother has always mentioned this, that she was far more enlightened than me, though less educated than me. And today we are far more educated, that's why we lost enlightenment. And therefore we must focus on lifestyles of people of the world, and India can show the answer to that. Of course, I am talking about a traditional lifestyle, not the so-called modern one. So lifestyle is something which India can contribute to in terms of people understanding it. The second part is we are going to be the largest consumer of new energy in the world. Today China is the largest consumer, US second, but we'll be the largest, and we already become, incremental energy wise, we are the largest user of it. So we have to change the energy mix. Again, thanks to Prime Minister Modi, we have actually changed the energy mix in a significant way. India now produces large amount of renewable energy, solar and wind, and now we are also going into hydrogen, which I am again in my some issues with that, because hydrogen would actually have to break water into two parts, and that too a fresh water. But that's different. But so we are going in for a completely changing the energy mix of the world. That itself will help not only us solving our energy problem, but also help the world, because to that extent more and more energy mix is changed, more and more renewable and clean energy are brought into the grid. Definitely there is going to be a less emissions of greenhouse gases, which in turn will abate the climate change issues. So that's going to be our major contribution. Another very important issue that we have to contribute, and we are sufferers from that, is because of this temperature rise which is already happening, our staple food, particularly in the north of our country, they eat more wheat. In the south we eat more rice. The wheat will not be able to withstand these high temperatures, and therefore it's going to threaten our food security. Not only food security for those who eat the food, but livelihood for the farmers, livelihood for also the fishermen, because climate change is also going to result into increase in sea level rise, and therefore that again is going to cause problems. So our contribution through innovation, as if Dr. Ranade has put it into the title of the speech, it actually can help the world. Sea level rise is a major issue. In fact, all the small island states of the world, they have formed their own organization, and they are saying that we are going to get submerged. And we have 7,600 kilometers of coastline. And people don't realize we have so many islands in India. Whether Andaman Nicobar group of islands, Lakshadweep, we have so many islands. And therefore those islands will also be facing an existential crisis. So we have to have a solution to this climate change, particularly from sea level rise. So just imagine, on one side is Himalayas, which is the hilly region, that is facing problem. Other side, India's coastline, which again is facing problem. And those who live in the plains in between, they will also have problem, because their main source of livelihood, agriculture, which again is in a serious challenging situation. So we have a big issue to deal with. And as I said, water, which is required for our own survival as well as the survival of the nature, is itself a big problem, because climate change is going to result into sometimes severe rains and sometimes no rain. I remember 1998 when I was an environment minister in Atalji's cabinet, people asked me in the question in the parliament, somebody from the opposition benches, that why unnecessarily we talk about climate change, because those days were 3 years of continuous good rain. He said, how are you talking about rain not there, such a good rain? I said, the problem is that 3 years of good rain itself is, or that was I think more than 3, 5, 6 years. I said, that itself is an abnormality. But just imagine, if you have good rains for 5, 7, if you have drought for 5, 6 years in a row, what will happen? And this is what the scientists have predicted. In fact, Maharashtra, in 1972, we had the worst drought ever. In fact, the entire Maharashtra's socio-cultural, economic life changed because of that drought. Till that time, if you go to any village in Maharashtra, you'll always find the villages were more or less, not 100%, but most of them were very self-sufficient. There's a lot of greenery around, there's a lot of water around. But when this happened, Vasantrao Naik was the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. He launched a major program because that was necessary at that time, because he had to save lives of people, not only of people, but also of the livestock. Because so many, the farms cannot run without the livestock, so they had to live the life. But that changed the entire, people migrated. The farmers earning good amount of money, they became farm laborers. Most of the people from villages migrated to cities, and they became slum dwellers. So complete deterioration of the lives happened because of one drought. Just imagine climate change can result into so many droughts. And also at a time when the world is also facing a challenge, and therefore we have a convention on desertification. The deserts, the land that deserts occupy today is increasing. And their deserts are consuming a very fertile land over a period of time. So just imagine the sea level rise will bring more and more saline water inland. And therefore the fresh water resources will be under threat. On the other hand, the desertification happening, that is not only because of climate change, that is a natural phenomena. But desertification will also lead to more and more fertile land, the land, arable land will be lost. So what is the challenge that the world is facing? And today, we think technology can solve all the problems. It can, certainly, to great extent. And we have to have technology. I'm not against technology at all. But I'm saying, unless we are conscious about the challenge that we're facing and we focus on such technology that will address this problem. So innovation that we talk about should be focusing only on such issues. How do you make sure that we can create more clean energy? How do you ensure that we have water security? How do you ensure that we develop new seeds, new plant varieties which can withstand the heat and therefore can be climate proof? How do you make sure that our fertile land will not be lost? And how do you make sure that rising population will not lead to more and more imminent disaster for the world? In fact, Africa has 54 countries and we are only one country, have a same population level. And it is estimated and forecasted that African population will rise substantially. Africa has today the only place where there is still more arable land which is not yet cultivated, and that also will be now under threat because of the rising population in that continent. So we have to really deal with this issue, and for that I am saying we really need innovation to bring in such issues to focus. And I think the whole world, all the scientists, all the technologists, all the brilliant minds must focus their attention on development of technologies to address these issues. And if we do that, we would have really helped ourselves by saving us from imminent extinction. And that's a challenge, and we have not much time available for that. And therefore, I think the whole world, this is what I have been also saying whenever I go anywhere. I was speaking a few weeks back in the US, I've spoken at most of the Ivy League universities in the US, and I was saying, why not we focus only on these few issues? Develop technologies for sure, but technology for addressing these challenges which human beings and the entire biological life is facing. That also makes business sense, because this technology will also have demand, because people would like to use them to save themselves. So I think that's why I started saying that we are at a crossroad. That we are at a crossroad of whether we survive or we don't survive. It is like when a patient is admitted to ICU, there is maybe 50-50 chance for some time, then it becomes 80-20, 90-10. I don't know which proportion I should apply to this situation, but certainly the humanity is in the ICU. And if we don't act quickly and we don't act in the right manner, then probably we'll be discharged from ICU, but not into the general ward, but I don't know where we'll be going. So I think we have to therefore work very diligently, focused way on these issues. And that's the innovation that I was talking about. Luckily, again coming to Prime Minister Modi, because I remember I used to be one of the early climate change organization was based in UK with Tony Blair had formed. I was a member of the board. And then Present Prime Minister was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. So I told him, why don't the Gujarat become, and Gujarat government started, the only state in India, probably only state in the world, to start a climate change department. Can you imagine? Because this was a sub-national initiative. And that is what we needed. We need global initiative to combat climate change, because what we are really calculating, 1.5 degrees is a combined, the operation of combined forces that happen globally. That's why we need global action, but we also need national action. If all the countries say global action is required, so nobody will do anything, it's not going to help. And suppose a national action is necessary in our own country, and states don't act, how is it going to help? So I think we need bottoms-up approach, at the same time global action at the same time. So very unique situation. And I hope we work on that and succeed in doing that. The hope is, of course, all those who are sitting in front of me, because you are all young students who have much more to, and everything is at stake for you. I always feel sorry for young students, because every time we talk to young students, we say, now the response is on you. So my generation has created problem and now you solve the problems. But at the same time, that's the reality of life, that if you don't do it, who else will do it? So I hope you all use your combined strength, intellect, your ability, creative mind to address this very, very serious challenge that we are facing today. And that's the innovation. Innovation to change the world for better, innovation to change our lifestyles for better, innovation to bring in sectoral changes that I mentioned, whether it's energy, agriculture, water, and whatnot. Forestry, very important. Forests actually are the most important source of providing us guarantee for survival. Many of you would definitely know that most of the fresh water comes from forest. All the biodiversity that we talk about comes from the forest. And biodiversity is responsible for most of the life-saving medicines in the world. You may be thinking that medicines are manufactured in some factories, which is true, but the source of that comes from some of the big source of biodiversity. So I think hopefully we'll be able to work on all this. Thank you very much, because I know I don't want, because you'll have to go and have good dinner, so if I keep telling you about the problem, you'll probably miss your dinner today. So I would like to thank you, and thank you for inviting me for this program, and thank you because I still remember your father as one of the very, very distinguished, accomplished, and also a forward-thinking thinker. He was always thinking about the issues in a very comprehensive way. And we had a very interesting discussion in Goa University. Again, that's another connection, because my wife is from Goa. And also, in fact, I used to be teaching at Goa Institute of Management. I'm not guest lecturer. When I was member of parliament, I used to skip on Friday evening, take lectures and go on Monday morning in Delhi again, where my office was. But so Goa connection. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Dubhashi was born in Karwar. And like all the Karwaris at that time, they were born there, and that was the only connection with that place. And they left Karwar and became very successful wherever they went. So all eminent chartered accountants of Mumbai, like I'm not eminent, but I am a chartered accountant. And they were many of them came from Karwar, or of course from Rajasthan. The most successful chartered accountants in the Birla group were all from Rajasthan. And this is a very nice opportunity for me to pay tribute to such a great person. So I'm happy to be here. I'm sure all of you are far more thinkers than me, because you are learning in an institute which opens your mind to new ideas in economics and many other issues. I'm sure you will be able to take this process forward of making sure that we have a permanent life on this planet. Right now, just imagine that's the innovation that we're talking about. What is the technology? We are going and finding out water on the other planets. and forgetting that there is a water already on this planet, that we need to be conserved and preserved and ensure that water cycle works in a proper manner. And that's what I was talking about, the focusing on innovation, on immediate challenges that we are facing. And I hope we succeed in doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that enlightening address. Now, we open the floor for questions.
Good evening, sir. This is Miti Agarwal. I am from the first year BSc in this college. Given that you have been a person in the government itself, could you please provide an outlook on what the opinion of the at a government level becomes about carbon taxation?
What is your opinion about carbon taxation?
Carbon taxation. See, basically, all such ideas have a pros and cons. So carbon taxation is an idea which will prevent use of carbon, but not necessarily always will result into that, because this is considered as one of the market-based mechanism. If you price something, obviously the demand will go down. But we have seen, say, take the oil has a carbon content into it. Of course, oil has even sulfur. It has so many other NOx and many other greenhouse gases and also hazardous substances, but also carbon. Now, whenever the petrol prices go up, first they decide I will not use the vehicle. Petrol prices have gone up. Second day onwards, you take on a longer ride, right? So carbon pricing has advantages, possibly advantages, but not always. But it pushes the cost. That's the bad part of that. So if the cost is pushed, then who pays for it? Now you can say that the person who is using carbon is putting it. But some part of that carbon which is emitted, the consumption of that is part of a daily necessity. And can anybody avoid going via the public transport? Now you can say I am using electric buses. But electric bus, where the electric bus means electricity run buses. How do you produce electricity? We are producing electricity from coal. So the back-ended part we are not seeing. It's like going to the best restaurant and eat the most tasty food, but without going into the kitchen. Once you go to the kitchen, you say, oh, I don't want to eat food here again. So that's how the electric bus seems very exciting. But if electric buses are fired by electricity which is generated from coal, then how is it benefit? So now why I was saying this, the carbon pricing on transport, for example, would prevent some of the poor people, will add to their cost and to their family budget will be used for such purpose. So we have to be very cautious. It's a good idea, but not necessarily the only idea. We have to use multiple ideas. So in fact, under the Kyoto Protocol, there were 3 markets-based mechanisms. One was clean development mechanism, there was one emission trading, and there was one joint implementation. So we have to be creative in terms of finding out ideas. The best way rather than carbon pricing is not a bad idea, but at the same time, if you can actually, I am the founder of a think tank called Council for Energy, Environment and Water. I founded it more than 10 years ago. So now it has become a very reputed big think tank. I'm not now, because when Modi ji made me a minister again, I had to resign from all these, including this. But there we had studied this carbon pricing in a very holistic way. So it's a good idea, but not necessarily the only idea that we should adopt.
Good evening, sir. My name is Arya. I'm a second year BSc student here at the Gokhale Institute. I had a question regarding sustainability in our agriculture, because our government is moving to make manufacturing more sustainable, but we don't have much of a debate regarding how to make agriculture in India sustainable. So can India afford it right now, or is that something we'll have to look at immediately?
About sustainability.
See, as I mentioned, this is a major issue because, there's a Malthusian theory which said that if people will run out of food, that's why population cannot rise because people will die. But that didn't happen. Why? Because of agriculture. Because they produce more food than what was ever thought of. Because of so many different high-yielding varieties, the high-ended fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides, fungicides and all of that. But that has also resulted in harming the soil, which actually is a cause of agriculture. So right now we are in the, again, very dangerous situation, wherein the soil itself is not fertile enough, will not be able to produce food. Otherwise, land doesn't produce food. What is real cause of land growing it is because of the upper layer, which is the soil, so topsoil. Now, otherwise, in the desert, you should produce more food, but this happens because there is no topsoil there. So, soil is a very important thing which has been very greatly damaged because of abuse and overuse of some of these chemical fertilizers and others. So, as you know, in fertilizers, we need fertilizer. Without that, we will not be able to produce, as I was saying, the productivity will be even lower. But there is a NPK, the 3 different types of fertilizers. Our public policy, I was a Minister of Chemicals and Fertilizer also. So problem is that our fertilizers, we are giving more subsidy to nitrogenous fertilizers like urea, and we are not giving enough to potash and phosphatic fertilizers. So now we have corrected that. So right now that NPK balance, as it always says, which is necessary. So we have done that. But even to do this is on a business as usual approach. But a climate change has put a severe challenge to agriculture. Because firstly, you cannot do agriculture without water, and water itself is going to be a big problem. Pakistan, half of Pakistan was under water in 22, I think, 22. So, the whole area that was under water was a agriculture bowl of Pakistan. And just imagine, we have same agroclimatic condition like Pakistan or Punjab or that area. So just, with too much water is also not good. That completely, because then you add salt to the soil, which will not make the soil fertile again. So this is a big issue for climate, and this is caused by climate change. So we have to be, so in normal situation, agriculture, we had challenges because of the long abuse of soil. And now we have a different dimension to the challenge posed by climate change. And as I was saying, wheat will not be able to withstand this high temperature. So we have to work on conservation. Luckily, there are ICR, the Indian Council for Agriculture Research, which is one of the biggest agriculture research network in the world. Is actually one part of that ICR network is working on climate proofing agriculture. I actually, in my many earlier lives, we had created a global forum for farmers. I was a founding president. We called all the different countries from different parts of the world to India. This was some more than 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. And why? Only to address these climate change and agriculture issues. So because it's not our own problem, our problem alone. It's a problem of the entire agriculture fraternity, agricultural community. So how do you work together on that was the question. But it's a very serious issue. Luckily, our government is conscious of this challenge and try to address it. So right now we have started making pulses. We are going to manufacture. So actually the pulse, because it's a changing cropping pattern. By doing that, see, if you produce only sugarcane, which takes so much of water and actually spoils it more, if you change the cropping pattern and get pulses, automatically that itself will add to the soil getting rejuvenated. So that's a good thing.
So there's Shreya, you want to ask? Maybe you can come last. We'll have one more question and then Shreya. Yeah, at the back. Yeah.
Hello sir, I'm Devang Katikar. I'm from second year MSc. Sir, I have a question that as a chartered accountant, we are more interested into finance. So what was the main motivation that you moved towards environment and all these thoughts about environment? Because you are a great speaker when it comes to environment. So what was the main motivation or the main interest that moved you?
So he gave me the topic related to environment, so I spoke on environment. Otherwise, finance also is definitely my. But it's actually, really speaking, if you look at it, there is no need to compartmentalize. That we are talking about environment separate, finance separate, infrastructure separate, energies. It's not like that. Actually, we are talking about human life. We are talking about our own survival, our own existence. So for our own existence or day-to-day life, we need everything. We need finance also. If there is no finance, there is nothing in my pocket, and I keep speaking about it, what's going to happen? So finance is an important element, like so many other things. So not only one at the expense of other. It's not that finance or climate change or environment or sustainable development. This is not a question. The question is, we are talking about holistic way of looking at it. And that's, I would feel, my opinion, our own gift to the world, that you think holistically. That's what we normally don't do that. This is a challenge in one. If I am getting into that issue, it will take a long time. So I am not confining myself to avoid the temptation of getting into larger issues. But I'm just saying that our own traditional thinking demands and guides us that think holistically. Then only we'll solve the problem.
Okay, maybe one last question, Shreya. Yeah.
Hello. Sir, my name is Shreya Gokhale. I am a second year economics student at this institute. Sir, since you mentioned green energy and renewable energy, so recently India launched its National Green Hydrogen Mission. So what are your thoughts about that?
About green hydrogen, what do you think? What are your thoughts on green hydrogen?
So, you know what is green hydrogen, right? See, basically, you are actually making hydrogen. What is the source of hydrogen? Where do you make hydrogen from? So, normally, it's from the water, correct? That's the source of it. So, break water into two parts, and then hydrogen, you take it out. But how do you break that? You need energy for that. So, if you use same coal energy, then it's not green hydrogen. But if you use renewable energy, to solar or wind or any form of energy, then it's a green hydrogen. They only talk about green hydrogen, grey hydrogen,
Pink and black.
different
Yeah,
types.
there are
So
many.
green hydrogen, India has a potential. Why? Because we have 300 days of sunshine and we have got a very good radiation. So we can actually produce so much of solar energy. We can also produce wind, not only onshore but offshore. So some depends upon wind velocity, but it is also possible. So south has better wind velocity than the north. But I think it's a great opportunity to, and of course my only question that I was saying was when you make green hydrogen, we already have only 4% of the water of the world. Our country has only 4% of the fresh water of the world. And now we have already water stress in many parts of the country. So now you divert water, and 84% of water is used for agriculture. So if you divert water for hydrogen, of course they are all saying that, I was talking to some of the experts, they are saying we'll use very minuscule proportion of that. I hope so. But otherwise, it's a green hydrogen which we can actually be able to export also. That's the plan of the private companies which are going to manufacture hydrogen. And Government of India also has launched a hydrogen mission to make India as a leading player into this space. So I think it's a good opportunity. But all technologies, you have to be wary because you only will know the challenges only when you use it. So let us see, let us hope that we progress on this without causing any collateral damage to the other systems.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I think we should wind up because of limitation of time, Komal. So I'll hand it back. But can I just take 1 minute? I want to insert a very optimistic point here that, it's very unusual for me to actually counter Mr. Prabhu with optimism. See, there are, this thing which I'm holding has more computing power than the largest IBM computer you can imagine in the 1970s or even 1980s. And that happened just in 30 years. Then there are 120, 130 elements in the periodic table. Those of you who are chemistry students, in 9th standard. So, in how many ways can you combine 109 elements or 120 elements taken two at a time? So H2O is hydrogen plus oxygen, or CHCO3 is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Now, you've done permutations and combinations. It's a mind-boggling number, and we have not even scratched 0.001% of the possibility of combinations of materials. So just wait for technology to break through, and remember 75% of the world is water. So we can't talk about water scarcity. Only thing is we haven't figured out a technologically easy way to convert seawater or saline water into. So I would just, on behalf of all the techno-optimists here, I want to say that we have a very bright future, sir, and we'll find a technological solution. Anyway.
I fully agree, but I'll just try to qualify this statement. See, for example, we call some material as rare earth. Why do we call it rare earth? Because they are so rare. That's by definition they are rare. Now we are using nanotechnology, so that because we are using nanotechnology, we are using a fraction of that and try to put it into it, as you correctly said. But even then there's a limitation of how much can we do that and up to how long we can do that. So in the foreseeable future, the materials may not be a problem. But after some time, this can become a real issue. And therefore, we have to be very conscious about this is a technology issue. So technology can stretch this possibility to a much longer period and therefore avoid the disaster that is probably going to hit us. But for how long is the question? So therefore, resources in the world are not infinite. And the demand for them are infinite. And that's what the lifestyle issue, that's what I was talking about. That if you don't change your own thinking and try to make it in a way that the demand side management also will happen. And you mentioned about something that I did when I was the Minister of Power. That time the demand for the peak level shortage was 18%. So if today we had not done that law, today it would have been 60-70%. So probably we'll be able to get electricity maybe like municipal water that comes into Mumbai, maybe 1 hour or half an hour, and maybe some cities like in Dhule, the water comes once a week. Dhule once a week only, just imagine. So, if we do that, the electricity would have been a problem. But that time, so this was the supply side issue, that we try to augment the capacity of generation so supply will come. Same time, I had piloted a bill in the parliament called Energy Conservation Law to look at demand side management. You'll be happy to know that India's energy intensity used to be more than 1. That means if you add 1 GDP, then energy has to increase by 1%. Has come down to 0.7 or maybe even less now. And that shows the power of demand side management. So we have to work on demand side management to conserve these constantly diminishing resources of different kinds. And nanotechnology is a good innovation that makes use of small portion of that. Like one of our Indian company, IFCO, has now developed nano fertilizers. So that means a 50 kilo bag of urea, now only 500 milliliter is sufficient and has the same potency as a 50 kilo bag. And now they are developing even the Prime Minister only law, but it's a cooperative institution and incidentally another successful cooperative contribution. So I think this is something we should be also, so I agree with you, but I'm just saying it is always better to err on the right side. So I think we should try to be cautious and work on that.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your wisdom. As we draw the curtains on this enriching session, it's my privilege to extend heartfelt gratitude to all who have made today's event a resounding success. A sincere thank you to our esteemed guests, Mr. Suresh Prabhakar Prabhu and Dr. P.R Dubhashi for gracing us. I would also like to express our gratitude to Dr. Ajit Ranade, our revered Vice Chancellor, for his unwavering support and guidance. With that, we conclude today's event fueled by knowledge, inspiration, and a shared commitment to academic excellence. Thank you all for being a part of this memorable session.